It's now time for Success Secrets, the most fulfilling 5 minutes of your morning. Be inspired, be motivated, be wired for success. This is Success Secrets, and you are wired for success.
Hi friends, I want to welcome you to today's edition of Success Secrets. Remember, on Success Secrets, we believe you are wired for success. So today's edition is an interesting edition because my wife and I are privileged to be celebrating 9 years in marriage, and it is also her birthday. So 9 years ago, my wife and I agreed in principle to live our lives together and to live a generational impact as two. Remember the power of two that is expressed in Deuteronomy and in Joshua, that shows that there is power in two more than one. So one puts together 1,000 to flight, and two is made to put together 10,000. So there is great power in two. There is great power in marriage. And if you are interested and you can abide by the guidelines and the rules that govern working together, living together, loving together, and impacting generations together, then I welcome you into the life of marriage. So for this day, we've decided to share 7 must-avoids and 9 must-dos over this period of 9 years when we've been working together and living together as a couple. Now, I remember very well about 11 years ago, that is so 2 years into the marriage, we were friends, and when we decided to marry 9 years ago, I remember making a proposal to her with a PowerPoint presentation and a laptop and showing her the picture of my future and giving her the chance to study it over time. And she came back saying, "Look, I am on board." And I said, "Well, let's move on." And she signed and we went into a retreat. I've said this story a number of times. So we began with a certain focus, a certain detailed attention, a certain inspiration. So beyond the feelings, beyond the discovery of love, beyond everything else that surround your decision to marry, you must take the institution of marriage a little bit more serious and put together a direction for your life. Don't join any relationship without any direction, because then it would be like joining a car or a bus or a train or a flight to a place you don't know and to a destination you are not aware of. That would be a disaster. So 7 must avoid and 9 must do's in these 9 years of working together as a couple. So let me start with the must avoid to say that if you are listening to me as a young person or even an adult and you have taken the decision of marrying and you have not started yet, these are 7 things you must avoid, because then it will save you from the danger of making mistakes in your marriage. And then 9 must do's, like 9 things you've got to take serious and do so that you can become successful at marriage. So what are the 7 must avoids that we have learned? Number 1, and I'll run through them very quickly and we will send you the extended versions. Number 1 is do not marry by chance. Do not marry by chance. It's important not to just go into a serious relationship like marriage by chance, because if you marry by chance, then you are going to also fail by chance. Number 2, do not just marry by convenience. You are not doing anybody a favor, so make sure you don't accept to marry or to walk together as a couple just by convenience. If that happens to you, then you are going to struggle along the way. Number 3, do not marry by compulsion. Marriage is a long life. It is forever. It is a very long journey, and you cannot just take that lifetime decision by compulsion, because if you do, you will probably not be able to go on that marathon. As long as you want to go on that marathon, then prepare that you are not going to take a decision by compulsion, because it's not a sprint. Again, the number 4 thing you've got to learn to do is to make sure you do not marry or go into marriage by crisis. Don't just take a decision to marry a person just because of a crisis. No, many people take a decision in the middle of a crisis, and to avoid that crisis, they will say, okay, let's just marry. No, you are going to be in trouble if you marry based on crisis, or if your decision to marry or to go into marriage is based on crisis. The next thing you have to avoid, which is the fifth point, is not to marry based on competition. You cannot marry to compete somebody out and to make a point to another person that, look, I would also marry for you to see. No. Marriage is not a competition at all. Somebody marries early, another person marries very late, another person may not even marry at all. Marriage is never a competition. And so make sure you don't make that mistake. You don't compete. Marriage is completion. You don't compete. And so take note of that, and not to get yourself locked up in any marriage by competition. The sixth thing is not to marry by cheating. So don't marry by cheating. Don't go into marriage that is based on cheating, that is founded on cheating, that because you cheated and you want to overcorrect, or you want to overcome that cheating, you will now go into marriage based on that. That is also another grave error you can do, because it will not last. And then the seventh point is don't marry based on confusion or out of confusion. You are confused about a person you have to marry. Don't marry on that basis that, look, well, I don't know what to do, I'm just confused, let me just go into it and see what happens. No, marriage is forever. Marriage is a lifetime decision, and so avoid taking a decision to marry in confusion. So must avoid, if you really want a marriage that will work for you, is number one, don't marry by chance. Number two, don't marry by convenience. Number three, don't marry by compulsion. Number four, don't marry by crisis. Number five, don't marry because of competition. Or number six, don't marry out of cheating. And then number seven, don't marry out of confusion. These are must avoid that if you take very good look at them and avoid in your decision to marry, you will be amazed how it's going to save you. Now, after this, let's go to what you must do if you want to marry. And I want to start first and foremost that marry. Your marriage must be based on Christ. Very important. Your marriage must be based on Christ. Jesus at a point gave a parable about two people who built, and one built on sand and the other built on a rock. I am challenging you. He said, when the day of reckoning came, where the wind, the storm came, it blew on all the buildings that were built, but it was only the one that was built on a rock that stood the test of time. Marriages are tested. Marriages are tested by storm, by fire, by difficult moments, by very difficult times, and it takes marriages that are built on Christ alone to stand. So if you want to get a marriage or get into a relationship that will stand the test of time, above every trouble or every challenge, then marry with the foundation of Christ. Number two, marry. If you want to marry well, make sure you are marrying out of conviction. Conviction is important. You cannot just marry when you are not convinced. You don't have a conviction, a deep down conviction in your heart, and that conviction is what is making you take the decision. Marry out of conviction. After Christ the foundation, make sure you are convinced about marriage, and when you marry out of conviction, then you can see your way out. And even when there are difficult times, conviction will keep you in the marriage. The third thing is to marry out of comprehension. The two of you must understand what marriage is and what exactly it involves. You've got to know that it's a lifelong union and it involves a lot of effort. And so when you are marrying, make sure it is out of comprehension. Make sure you take that decision out of comprehension. The next that you have to take notice of is to marry out out of choice. One of the things God gave us as human beings is to do things out of choice. And you read the Bible from Genesis, you will notice that it is a matter of choice all the way from when Adam and Eve were created. And that is where we have gotten to, where we have the power to choose. And so you must make sure that before you go into marriage, you are taking this decision out of your own choice so that you don't regret one day and blame another person. The next important thing you've got to know and do is to marry out of commitment. Commitment is a big deal. You have to be committed. Commitment is a big deal. Commitment is what will keep you, that you know that marriage is work. You have to work at it. It is not every day that you feel excited to get up and go to work, but you are committed to the employer. And so you get up and you move. Same way, marriage is needed. If you want to be successful, what is needed for your marriage to work is commitment. So marry out of commitment and make sure that the fuel that will continue to make you put your love to work, even when you don't feel like you can move on. So marry out of commitment is a very important C. The next C is to marry out of character. Character is a set of behavior traits that will define the person you are. And so you have to make sure that you are gifted. You have the right character. Many people will say, I want this person to marry a person who is this or a person who is that, but they never ask themselves, if I am that person I am aspiring to also marry. If you want a good person, you better become one. If you want a diligent person, you better become one. If you want a person of integrity, you better become one. If you want a person who laughs, you better become one. So you marry out of character. You don't expect what you are not, so that when you marry out of character, you will be able to give what you expect as well, and it makes your marriage successful. The last two that you have to marry out of is chastity. So marry out of chastity. This is like a virtue by which you control your sexual appetite rather than leaving it out of control. So marry out of chastity so that you can be pure and you can be holy and you can be guarded by principles to stand by your couple and your wife and your spouse. So marry out of chastity. And the next one is marry out of charity. Charity is love. Love is important. And so you've got to marry out of love. If you are able to marry out of love, it works for you. So beloved, if you are listening to me, we have looked at 7 must avoid, and we've just looked at the 9 must haves and do's. And so we talked about Christ, we talked about conviction, we talked about comprehension, we talked about choice, we talked about commitment, we talked about character, we talked about chastity, and then we talked about charity. Now the last one, which makes it 9, is marriage with caution. So before you marry, make sure you are very sure of the decision you are taking. So marry with caution. Marry with caution. Don't just get into marriage. Marry with caution. And if you can do these 9 things and avoid the 7 things I shared, I believe you would be able to pursue and take the right decisions in your marriage. So on our 9th anniversary, this is our gift to you, that avoid the 7 must avoids and do the 9 must do's as our 9 gifts for you for 9 years of marriage. I am sure on our 10th anniversary, I will come to you again with the 10 things you must do. So take note and make sure that you exercise the power of 2 and take the right decision of marriage. Happy anniversary to my wife and I, and a happy birthday, a lovely birthday to her. A woman of steel, a woman of great strength, a woman of patience, a woman of great character and temperance, and I'm privileged to have married you. Thank God for your life. And my prayer is that every young person or every adult or every couple listening to me will receive the same grace of fortitude. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Remember, on Success Secrets we say you are wired for success.